Well, hello, Krista. How are you doing?
Fantastic. How are you?
Good, good. Welcome everyone to the Lead Different podcast premiere with Krista Martin. It's been a morning, Krista. I know you will understand. We had snow in Albuquerque, New Mexico this week, and we rarely get snow. So the world comes to a stop, and of course, it melts by noon. But you're in Atlanta, aren't you?
Yes.
So when you guys get
Yes. And
snow,
in
I'm sure it's the
Atlanta, the
same
whole
thing.
entire world shuts down.
Yeah. So we've been dealing with that. So we've
Yes.
been
Everybody freaks out.
yeah, I've got kids home for 2 days straight. So thankfully, I don't know if I shared with you. So I've got a new office and it's 5 minutes from my house. So it allows me to get out of the house when the kids are home and there's lots of stuff going on and I'm not putting up with their noise. I think I learned from you about fire, flood, or blood, right? You don't bother mom unless there's fire, flood, or blood. Was that you?
Yes. I forgot we talked about that. But yes, that's the only reasons for an interruption.
Right. And so from you, I developed the system. And so at our house, you know, those little colored lights that they sell that you can put under your closet and they can be green, yellow, red. So I put one of those outside of my office. And if it's red, I'm recording. So you dare not come in unless there's fire, flood, or blood. And so if I would put the red light on, but it's been nice. I've been
I
able to get
love it.
away from home this week and get to the office. But then today, my car, I got a flat tire. And I had to take it into the shop. They had to special order the tire, and today was the day I was supposed to pick it up. So my wife was very nice, took me all the way to the car dealership, drops me off, and then I got to come to the office so I could be on the air with you at 11 o'clock our time, 1 p.m. Eastern. I realized after I got in my car that I left my backpack in my wife's car. So then I
Oh,
had to go find her meter, grab the backpack, and get here to start with you. But I knew that if anybody would understand, it was you because one of the clips I shared was about, sometimes stuff happens and our people get it, right? So we talked about that during the interview. You've just been one of the best people I've had the opportunity to meet in terms of your just
shoot.
genuine connection that we've made. What great value
I
you bring.
shared was about, sometimes stuff happens and our people get it, right? So we talked about that during the interview. You've just been one of the best people I've had the opportunity to meet in terms of your just genuine connection that we.
Wow, that is really a delayed echo that we just had. Can you hear me, Krista? Hey, those of you who are,
Is that me, Dan?
yeah, that was your microphone. So that was a real delayed echo that we had. I'm gonna try. I'll turn on your microphone again, and we'll try that again. So I finished talking, and then it echoed. So those of you who are listening, this is exactly what I was talking about. Krista will just roll with the punches. Let's see what we can do if we turn on your microphone. I wonder if you've got two different speakers coming on because yeah. All right. So what about we do this, everybody? Let's see here. I've got something in the private chat. Yeah. So, hey, this is what we're going to do. Krista and I had a fantastic interview. So, who should be listening, right? If you're a speaker, if you're a coach, and you're looking to fill your programs, one of the best lessons I learned from Krista, and I wish you weren't muted, Krista, is, there's a difference between educating your audience and activating your audience. And it's so important that we activate our audience and we lead them to action, right? So let's get into the interview. Well, here's what's going to happen. Those of you who are watching live that want to join in the conversation, I'm going to start the interview. We're going to play the interview that we recorded a few weeks ago. It's going to be playing live on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and on Facebook, wherever you guys are following us. Krista and I are going to follow in the background, and we're going to take your comments and questions. So, hey, by the way, Krista, somebody said you guys are doing great. No worries about tech difficulties. We all have them. See, that's our people, right, Krista? So Sunil, why don't we go ahead and play the interview? Krista and I are going to go in the background and answer your questions and take your comments. Welcome, everyone, to the Lead Different podcast. Let's do it, Sunil.
Different, the podcast that redefines leadership and challenges the status quo. Hosted by Daniel Dominguez, founder and CEO of Why Not Leadership. This show is your compass to becoming a better leader through the power of self-awareness. Good leaders foster teams that are engaged, empowered, and energized. Join us on this transformative journey as we equip you with the tools and insights to lead different. Get ready to challenge the ordinary and embrace self-aware leadership. This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lead Different podcast. I am excited to introduce you guys today to Krista Martin. Krista is the president and CEO of Make Your Mark. She is an international speaker and an animal welfare strategist who also serves as the president and founder of the Unleashed Project. Krista challenges the belief that building an online business has to be hard. She draws from her diverse experiences, including earning an MBA in marketing, running a successful side business, and completing her certified professional coactive coach training. She's a self-proclaimed serial learner. She continually seeks knowledge on simplifying and enhancing online business growth. She emphasizes the importance of having structured systems in sales, business development, and personal discovery. She has developed a step-by-step process for creating a fulfilling life and business, believing that the two are inseparable. She offers free 30-minute strategy sessions to help others assess their business goal and identify obstacles. So we'll give you access to that stuff. But without any further ado, let me introduce you to Krista Martin. How are you, Krista?
Oh, great, Dan. Thank you so much for having me.
Krista, is there anything in that introduction that I forgot? Anything you want to add? I always like to ask because sometimes I forget.
Well, thank you so much for that kind introduction. And the only thing I think you may have said, and I might have misheard, but I think you might have said the Unleashed Project and not Make Your Mark. Maybe.
Yes.
And so
I said both.
Oh,
So,
okay.
yes.
So I was maybe had a selective ear there. So no, I think you did an awesome job and really just wanting to help more coaches create this business that allows them to serve awesome people and then spend time with their family, friends, or, whoever that is on the other side of it too.
I love it. On one of my good friends is Jeff Pottinger, and we both spoke at the Y Institute's annual Y conference a couple of weeks ago. And one of the things I learned from him before I started my business, and when I was still working as the chief growth officer, he said, "Dan, I want to work less, I want to get paid more, and I want to play more golf." And he's a few years ahead of me on his career, but it's such a great motto. And I love playing golf with my dad and with my wife and with my daughter. I love getting paid more and I love working less. And who doesn't? Yeah. And I will tell you, if you're listening and if you have ever talked to me, you probably have heard Krista Martin's name come out of my mouth, because I give her a lot of credit for a lot of the things that I've learned that have helped me be successful in the first 9 months of this new business that I started, because she is a dynamo. I met her in 2021. Can you believe we've known each other that long, Krista?
No, someone asked me that the other day and I couldn't believe it. I mean, we just look more beautiful and younger every day. So that's what I'll stick with that. But I can't believe it's been that long.
I'm smart enough to have really good looking guests so that we both look good, right? If you have good looking guests, it makes rising tide raises all ships. And you're so good at that, Krista. What I have found is that no matter who I introduce you to, you're really good at understanding. And this is something you talk about in your workshops that you teach. And I've sat in on a few of them, is that abundance mentality. You really do have a mentality that, hey, the more people I help, the more people they help, the more we help each other, the better it is for all of us. There's plenty of pie out there, right? Let's just grow that pie. Where does that amazing positive attitude towards abundance come from?
Oh gosh, that's a great question there. And, I think it's just from being in business, which was another crazy realization the other day when someone asked, how long I'd been in business and 12 years running my own business. So I think what I have had the opportunity to see is that no matter what niche any of our clients are focusing on, they always, there's usually, I don't want to say always, but usually that hesitation of, is there enough people? Can I refer other people? Can I share this? And I've never found an audience that isn't bigger than what they could serve, even though they're an amazing person with huge capabilities, and so just saying it over and over again, there's way more people out there than you can serve, I can serve times a million. And so being able to really trust also that the right people, I believe that people are really divinely contracted, if you want to say that, to work with certain people. So I'm not attached to it has to be Dan for me or, this person over here, but the right person finds the right person always.
I agree. I agree 100%. And here's that. I love that you brought that up. There's 8 billion people on this planet. There's quite a bit. My niche is leaders. I love working with leaders. And so if I'm working with leaders, I just did. ChatGPT told me that about 2 to 10% of the world is in leadership positions. So that's like 10% of 8 billion. That's 800 million people that are in leadership. So where are we going to grab those people and let's help them be better? And then they've got people under them. And if I can help them be better leaders, lead different, right? And we, one of the things I've learned from you, and when we talk about building that ideal client profile, people struggle with that. One of the things I mentioned in the introduction that you do, Krista, that you do really well is help people build that ideal client profile and really narrow it down. Who do you want to work with? Because it can't be everybody. Because if you're trying to serve everybody, you're serving nobody. But how do you, and like I said, you share those frameworks that you've created. We'll get into frameworks, but that's a talent that you have. How important is it to know who your ideal client is? And why is it important?
Yeah, it is, I would say, one of the single most important things. And, Dan, I know you and I have talked a lot about speaking and growing your business that way. And one of the ways I believe that you can really see, am I clear enough, is it hard for you to find your ideal client in groups? Mm-hmm. And most people would say, yes, it's way too hard, or I don't know where to look. And one of the things is the more specific you are, the easier it is to find your person in groups, someone that's already gathering them, and I know we have a shared colleague, Dan, that when I first started working with him, he said, I work with leaders. And I said, well, that's great. To your point, Dan, there's a lot of leaders out there. And so we started to say, okay, well, yes, we could search for groups that gather leaders. But we got even more specific and said, okay, well, let's look at your past, your background. And he had spent time in supply chain management. So we said, okay, let's look for who gathers supply chain management leaders, and then all of a sudden, if you think about even, growing your business through speaking, we want to share your message in front of those people. And so the more specific you can get, the better. It's going to feel scary. And if it doesn't feel scary, you're not getting clear and specific enough, but challenge yourself to get more specific, because once we narrowed it down and said, okay, leaders in supply chain management, we knew exactly what groups to go to find those people. And then you can always choose to expand if you want to. But I've heard the saying forever ago, and I really believe it, the riches are in the niches. And so even though we might resist that at first, it's powerful and it just draws your right people to you.
Yeah, well, and then I think you hit it right on the head. The riches are in the niches, and you don't need to go everywhere, right? Because you're gonna drive yourself crazy trying to talk to the whole world. There's 8 billion people, right? So narrow that number down, narrow that down, that ideal client, so you can see him, so you can talk to him, and then build your brand around that, right?
Yes. Yes. And then even, you might even get more specific and say, I work with, supply chain management leaders, for example, on this one specific facet of leadership. Some people even go and get that refined, which,
right.
It is kind of this beautiful marriage of where like Dan's unique genius is, and then his ideal client too. And that overlap in there is really where I found the most fun clients are for us to be able to work with, and the people we can help create those results most quickly too.
Yes, and you're so good at that. So here's what I'm going to say, and this is a shameless plug for Krista Martin, guys. I will tell you, she is an amazing leader. If you've had the pleasure of sitting in on any of your free presentations or paid, she makes everything fun. But here's the best part about her: she makes everything structured. You will leave with tools you can use over and over again. So this is the part of the show where I get to tell you guys what her why operating system is. And when I tell you, you're going to see why I think we are such a good fit for each other, because I need what Krista has. So Krista's why is right way. She believes that success happens when we create systems and processes that deliver consistent, reliable results. And everything she does, she has a framework that she shares with you that you can apply over and over again. Her how is make sense. So, and we know about the how of make sense is she knows how to take things that are complicated and hard to understand and challenging, like trying to sell from a stage and getting consistent revenue from your speaking business. She takes that and makes it make sense for us. So she does that really well. And her what is better way. So what she delivers is a better way to do this. So when you look at that amazing combination of a why of creating systems, a how of solving problems, and a what of delivering a better way to do things, you can see why she's been so successful for over 12 years and really has elevated people. I know people that she works with. I'm going to give a shout out to James Madison. He's our mutual friend.
Yes.
In February, I was in Phoenix, and that's where James is. And I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, can we have some coffee?" And he came out to the resort where my wife and daughter and I were staying, and we had coffee. He presented me with a free book because he's such a giver, and told me what he was up to. But he couldn't say enough of what a difference you made for him. So not only am I saying Krista is a great coach, I know I've benefited from it, but so has James, and he's taken things to a whole other level. And one of the things he credited was exactly the path you took him on, Krista, to really narrow down who he worked with. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? I know he won't mind, because it's just who he works with, right?
Yeah.
So it's a great case study.
It's, and I love sharing examples, whether of James or anyone too, because I believe, at least the way my brain works, is that I like to see proof, that, hey, I'm not just going to go out and do something, but I want to see proof that this thing works. I guess that's the make sense piece of it too. So I like to, we can learn so much from seeing other people. And one of the things there's a lot of really great and awesome things about James. And he came in when we first started working together and said, "Okay, I'm willing to trust the process." He said, "I've never built a thriving coaching business before. Show me what to do first, second, and third." And so that's where we dove in to these things make sense at level 1, level 2, or level 3. Instead of saying, let's focus on level 3, which is what most people do when they're really at level 1, which is a waste of time and energy. But that willingness to say, okay, what are the steps in the order that makes sense? Even if it means doing the step 1 things, when the step 3 things, having this huge tripwire, and I'm making up things that, maybe people do at level 3, even though that may sound sexy, I'm willing to trust the process. And then take big action and say, okay, let's go out there and let's play big. And I would say both of us can say from James and his personality and his giving personality, and just the way he is he doesn't do anything small. He's all in. And so being willing to try things. And with his ideal client, we did start out with the big, broad group of leaders, as you mentioned. And while that's a big, I guess, specific group of people, we were able to go even further into being more refined and more refined. And the cool thing was that even though he refined, and when we were looking for speaking engagements into the supply chain management space, he has now a lot of clients in that space, but also outside of that space as well. So that clarity that you have when you say, I work with single moms trying to do A, B, and C, or I work with, executives that are in this industry or at this level or working on this challenge, that clarity that you have and that conviction for that person is actually very attractive just in general. So you'll have people outside of that industry, or that maybe isn't a single mom trying to do, lose those last 10 pounds after her second child. because people, I mean, that clarity is just, it's very attractive when this is who I serve and this is how I help them.
Absolutely. At the YCon, we had, I'll give a shout out to Eitan Pollinger. He gave a talk. One of the things he talked about, he's a young father with small kids. And so what he did when he was narrowing down his niche, because he said, that's who I can really talk to. There are specific problems that come with being a young father with small kids at home, because you're trying to run a business and you're trying to grow your business, but you also have to figure out feeding times and when are you going to give mom a break and when are we going to take him to the doctor's appointments. And he says, part of what you post, of course you post about your business and you're trying to generate leads, but sometimes people want to know a little bit about our personal lives. And there are specific issues that he runs into that if he puts them out, those entrepreneurs running a business, running a six-figure business, and having kids at home, and having to deal with having to call in sick because or cancel meetings because your kid got sick. Those are things that are going to make you relatable. And then all of a sudden you're working with people who just relate to you really well. And you do a great job of that, Krista. What's the secret?
Well, thank you for saying that, Dan. And, for me, it's always been, even as we've grown really quickly, we've had all kinds of different shifts and pivots. It's been the easiest thing for me is to be totally authentic and transparent. And I've found that even when I make mistakes or I flub something up when I'm giving a presentation, it actually draws more of the right people towards me. And, to your point, Dan, I remember one of the very first times I had to change a client call without a lot of notice because my child or one of them was sick. I don't remember which one. And we had to, or I had to go pick him up from school. I think it was my son anyways. And so went to get him. And I had a little bit of fear the first time thinking, I don't want to upset this client. And then I thought, no, my right fit clients totally get this. And never have I had pushback. That doesn't happen very often, thank goodness. But when you do show up authentically and bring your full self, not just Krista, make your mark, Krista, but bring everything about you to everything you do, to that same point of what you shared, that the speaker shared at the conference, you attract your right people. It's just energy follows energy. And I think when you're in that fun, maybe a little bit crazy young children mode, you're going to attract people that are in that super flexible, fun, a little bit crazy mode as well, which is to me very endearing and where we can really help create that 1 + 1 is 10 impact.
Yeah. One of the things that I loved about that point is, and your story is a perfect example of it. Somebody that is going to fire you or just not want to work with you because you had to go take care of your kid. Guess what? They're not your right fit client anyway. You don't want to work with them, do you?
Yeah. You're exactly right. And it's seeing, I think that's one of the coolest things about running your own business is you get to work with these super amazing people that have the same or super similar values to you. And if you have something come up for your kid, they're not going to flinch, and that might happen the other way that they have to reschedule a call, but it's just this really cool energy of being able to work with similar people very intentionally. And like you said, if it's not a right fit, guess what? There's a lot of other coaches they can work with that maybe don't have kids or don't have those kind of surprise things that show up in the middle of the day. But it is. And Dan, one of the cool things too, is the more I've shared, you and I have spoken about the volunteer work I do and our second company, the Unleash Project, which really focuses on helping homeless animals in the shelter space. And the more I've talked about that, the more I attract coaches that are wanting to help or have a passion for helping homeless animals as well. Or they want to tell me about their rescue cat or dog or some combination there. And it's just that I really believe it is that attraction energy of if we're willing to, and I'll kind of do this as, we're putting out that message or we're sharing what we do, we attract it right back. And so it's a beautiful thing of being able to share what we're doing and then also know we're attracting, people either like in that animal space or that are right fit clients as well.
Well, Krista, you were on my previous show, Why Not Wednesday, and we talked, man, that's been a couple of years too. So, but one of the things that I really wanted to talk about is how different you and I are, right? I think we're both high energy people. So that is coming across. I'm sure people are seeing that. But in terms of how you operate from doing things the right way, creating structure, following processes and systems. And you would think working with somebody with a how of challenge who doesn't like to follow rules, doesn't like to follow systems, we would immediately clash. But what I have found is when you find somebody who is really good at that, which you're not good at, you work with them. And if you can get along and if you have similar values, even better. But I've learned so much. As a matter of fact, at my talk at YCon, Gary Sanchez, who's a fellow colleague of ours, says, Dan, I can't believe your talk has so many great frameworks that you've created. And I said, well, I've learned with a how of challenge where I don't like to follow the rules. I like to kind of fly by the seat of my pants. I need those frameworks because they keep me in on the right track. Otherwise, I would be everywhere.
Yes. And what I want to underscore too, that I think is so genius about how you help clients and just the why operating system as well, is when you're aware enough to do this work for yourself and understand how you're wired, and then intentionally seek out people that think differently. One, like you and I, and I'll say this in a very loving way. So, and I think you would take it the right way anyway, but we might bump heads if we didn't know, where you'd say, why is she trying to give me a system? And I'm like, why is he not following the system? He's always improving it, but when okay, that's how Dan's wired. This is how I'm wired. One, here's a place where we might just have a little bit of friction, and not friction in a bad way, but we just don't think exactly the same. Right. You can leverage that to create even faster growth. So you can actually seek out people that are different for that very reason. And that's where I believe, the knowing your why allows you to seek out people that are different or, parallel maybe in certain situations to help you go even faster.
Yeah, I remember when I started doing this work, and Krista, I start every engagement with the why discovery. So I know the why of every client that I work with. And I used to think that I could only work with people who were similar to me, who wanted to contribute and make sense and challenge the status quo. And what I have found is that's not necessarily true. And I don't necessarily need to work with those, but I am looking for people that are looking for that. So the way I like to say it is when I'm, if I meet Krista and Krista's hiring me, I would say, Krista, look, I see that your why is right way and makes sense and better way. So you're looking for structure and you're looking to solve problems and you're looking to do things better. Here's what I bring to the table. I'm going to contribute to your success. And I'm going to challenge the way you're doing things. I'm going to give you some out of the box, different things, but I'm going to help you make sense of it. So if you're looking for that, we're going to be able to work. And I think it's what I call now, I've said it now a few times to people, is I don't want to solve a problem you don't have. So if you're looking for someone who cares about you, probably more than you even do. I've been accused of that. I care about people's success sometimes more than they do.
Oh, I get that too. Yeah.
Yeah. If you're looking for an out of the box solution or you're looking to look at something differently, especially for you who are just such a systems person, but you say, you know what, I've been doing it like this for a long time. I could use some of Dan's out of the box ideas. I want him to look at it, throw it up in the air and see what comes out, because I don't do that really well. Then I can help you with that, right? Yes. And so it's just that self-awareness has been so helpful for me, and I'm glad it's been helpful for you.
Yeah, it has. Well, and as a systems thinker, a right way person, always I'm always putting, my brain kind of naturally puts things into categories or boxes or processes. And it's actually cool too, to flip it and say, if I'm feeling stuck or like I'm in a place of resistance, where is my right way preventing me, or blocking me? If I want to say it that way, and like, what's the opposite of right way? And to your point of either how do I call Dan, to get a totally different perspective, or play with that idea of, what's the wrong way to do it, and just to look at, and then you see things, because at one place I do get stuck is, and I realize this as I put myself in a box, and so I have to say, okay, what's outside the box, Krista? Don't forget to look outside the box, because I like the boxes, but it's again, it's that awareness and then that ability to think about our brains and how our brains naturally work that allows us to really create huge and fast results and to I'll say unstuck ourselves if we're feeling stuck.
Yeah, well, and that's a phrase people with make sense say a lot. I help people get unstuck. One of the things that's a gift, and I know you have, that makes sense people have, and that's my what also. So I kind of know it. You're able to just make sense of things that where other people, it may take them a while longer to figure it out. You're able to kind of look at it fairly quickly and say, "Ha, I know what you need to do." But as a great coach that you are, you don't just give people solutions. You help them walk through it. You
Yeah.
ask questions, and then you help them come to their own conclusions when you're coaching them. And that's the other thing, again, not to overdo this, but I can't overdo it enough. I'm telling you guys, I'm gonna make myself bigger for this one. Look, if you are a speaker and you're struggling, and I'll tell you, I'll share this story because this is important. And when I went out on my own, when I was working with Gary as his chief growth officer, I wasn't as often in front of audiences, right? Most of the time I was dealing with leads that were generated by Gary, and my job was to follow up with them and get them to join our cohort. When I went into business for myself, now I'm on stage, right? And I remember specifically, I was at an event where I had my ideal audience in front of me. It was a good friend of mine who runs a mastermind. They're all CEOs. And I get in front of him, and he gave me 3 hours because I told him I can't do this in less. So I had 3 hours to really take him through a very immersive YOS experience and invite them to take their teams. And these weren't people that could not afford my offer, Krista. But I went way too high, way too fast after, you can't build, and I learned this from you can't build enough trust, even in a 3-hour presentation, to get somebody to invest 4 figures with you, or 4 or 5 figures, depending on which, you've got to slow it down and get that connection call. And so, I got off of that call and then, did my follow-up for 2 weeks, got a couple of meetings, but nothing materialized. And my mind went back to 2021. I said, wait a minute, there's a person that knows how to create talks that convert. And instead of hitting my head against the wall 3 more times and wasting another, because I had other events coming up with ideal audiences, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to call Krista. I'm going to hire her, and I want to have her help me create a talk that converts. Here's the cool part. I immediately after having done that, I had another meeting with 5 ideal clients, and all 5 of them came on board, and that was such a win for me. So the money I spent was paid for and then some immediately at my next talk, because then I was willing to, number one, take advantage of somebody that had been there, done that before, was willing to share it with me, and I actually implemented it. And that was the key part.
Absolutely. Yes. And you did so many things in that are so important. I think sometimes can get glossed over. But one, you said, hey, I don't want to waste time. I want to find somebody who's already done this, which is how people can grow quickly. I know that's always been something I've looked for, someone who's already figured it out that I can go learn from. So you did that. And then you showed up and you did the work and you implemented, just like we were saying about James earlier, he took action. He didn't just sit and say, oh, this is nice information. Similar to you, you said, okay, I'm going to go out and put this to practice or into practice. And you got results. And just those 2 elements of being willing to say, hey, this is important to me, who's already figured it out that I can learn from, and then 2, saying, okay, I'm actually going to implement it. Those are 2 key drivers of success that I think a lot of times people get stuck thinking about their thinking and thinking about what it might look like if they took action or might look like if they didn't. And all the magic's on the other side of taking action. It doesn't have to be the perfect result, but then you have new data to work with. And you also have shown up in a new way. And I like to say too, when clients are getting out and speaking for the first or second time, or they haven't done it in a while, or maybe they're doing it in a new format, you also realize that you don't die, which is a huge realization. And I say that jokingly because so many times people do think, this thing, if I do it and it doesn't work, it's the end of the world. And it's not the end of the world. It's just you learned, you got some new information.
Yeah, that's so funny because one of the things you do really well in the training that I did is you got to create your stories, right?
Yeah.
And I gave a story, when I was in the Army, I went through Airborne Ranger School, and in Ranger School, it's tough. You go in, it's 80% of people that try to go through don't make it. And what I remember is when I made the decision, when I looked at it and said, wait, they're not going to, just like you said, you're not going to die. They said, they're not going to kill me. This is training. I'm
Yeah.
not going to die here. So
Yeah.
this is very, so as long as I can survive it, I'm going to get through. And then it was so funny because once I knew that I wasn't going to die, it became easy. All of a sudden I was like, hey, I'm not going to die. So the worst that can happen is I'm going to lose a lot of weight. I'm going to be really tired, but I'm going to get through this. And you've got to just get out and take action. And I don't know if you shared this with me, but I have a slide in one of my presentations that says to know and not do is to not know at all.
Yes.
And that's so true, because I went through with someone else that was in that same cohort with me for that one class that we took on Talks That Convert. And they haven't done the work and they're not having the success. And I'm like, hey, you want to do something together? We talk and it's just, you have to take action. And the quicker you take action, the quicker you learn how not to do it. I think it was Thomas Edison said the way to success is to fail faster than everybody else, right?
Yeah. Yeah, you're exactly right. And, I saw a statement the other day and I don't remember who said it, but it was, failure is the currency of success. Or it was said something along those lines. So I'm butchering it a little bit and I didn't come up with it, but I thought, what a brilliant statement, and being really bold like that too, to call people into what they're resisting, because what they're resisting is exactly what's going to create their next breakthrough and whatever success looks like, so and Dan, there are so many people that learn a lot and they love to learn, which I love to learn, but then they get stuck in the learning mode and forget that everything is actually, it's not where we wait to take action till we're clear. We actually take action to get clear,
right?
But our brain tells us different sometimes. So it's just a matter of.
Yeah, and it's hard. So it's so funny because at the Y conference, as a matter of fact, Gary put out a post on LinkedIn, talked about one of the things he asked me to add, Krista, to my presentations is, can you talk about fearlessness, Dan? Because you're fearless. And I said, well, I don't think I'm fearless. He's like, but you do things, you take action. And I said, well, I think I have a lot of people who've coached me really well that the way to learn is to take action. Because I went from having to share other people's stories to being able to share my own stories, because now I've coached enough people, I've spoken on enough stages that I can say, well, here's what I know has worked just for me. Now that just gives me credibility, right? Because one of the things we talk about in speaking is people want to know why they should listen to you. Yeah. Right. And having those stories handy, crafting those stories ahead of time. So you're not rambling. So you're not telling a long story that's putting everyone to sleep. Hey, here's a quick story. I call my daughter calls them humble brags, Hey, throw that in there. I think you say it really funny in the workshop. You said, oh, I'm glad you asked why I'm here. Yeah. And then you say, hey, look, I once led teams that had $1 billion quotas. So I know how to get sales because I led teams at that level. If you're a sales leader and you want to learn from someone who's done it before, maybe you should listen to me. Krista has, we came from similar space, right? Pharmaceutical and medical sales.
Selling drugs and everything.
Yeah, selling drugs, legal drugs, of course.
Yes. Yes, but you're exactly right. And it's at least playing with, if you're hesitating, putting or sharing your own stories, play with it from the humble brag perspective. I love the way you put that, Dan, and just say, okay, what is it that this person listening to me or reading my blog post or listening to the podcast or, sitting in the audience, what is it that they really would be benefited by knowing about me that would speed up their ability to trust me? And just see what comes up. I tell the story all the time of growing our business from $40,000 to over 220 in 12 months. And then you'll notice I always say, I'm sharing this not to brag, but to help you see a really important piece here. Your growth doesn't have to be incremental. And then I talk about growing to $500,000 and $1 million mark. And from that place, but I'm also, then I kind of underline and I come back and say, and each time we've had a big leap in our business, it's been because of speaking. So if you're at all on the fence about, can speaking really grow your business? I want you to see and hear from this that yes, it can. And I know I kind of role played that there, Dan, but it is so powerful when we're willing to get out of our own way and say, what is it that the audience needs to know? Is it that I have my MBA or that I've led successful sales teams? Dan, like the quota numbers that you've talked about. And then people can say, oh, this is why he can be trusted as an expert. That's the part that I really want everybody who's listening to this. If you're hesitant on sharing your story in your speaking, one of the key pieces, key questions I ask in the story section is we ask all our clients to really answer this question: why can you be trusted as an expert? And really say, okay, I had this experience, these credentials, it could be a million different things. Or maybe you went through and screwed up for a long time, like I did, the first 4 or 5 years of my business, not making much money because I was doing it wrong. I hadn't figured out the right way yet to speak to get clients. And then I figured that out, so be willing to share your story of, yeah, I didn't always know this process or have this tool or this experience, but now I do. And now you can go faster.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a fast forward button. That's the other thing. Here coaching is the fast forward button. So, and I know you're hearing from a couple of coaches here, but guess what? I think most of you are coaches. Here's the thing. The reason we want to coach is because we don't want people, for me at least, as a contribute person who wants to challenge the way things are done and wants to help people make sense of things. I don't want you to go through what I went through. I don't want you to be 3/4 of the year and only be 50% to your quota and about to get fired. I want to show you some things you can do. One of the things I really love working on is helping people get to know their teams better, faster. The old way is, hey, you hire them, they go through onboarding, it's 90 days, and then they go through training, and then you put them in a territory and they may or may not succeed, and then you may go and ride with them, and it could take you a year to really get to know them. One of the things I love about using the YOS in every engagement that I do is, hey, you're going to get to know Krista. And if Krista works for me, if I'm putting her out into a territory, I know, hey, she's going to follow a process. Give her a process and a system that works, and she will follow it, and she will bring in the numbers. The other thing is she's going to be really good at solving any problems comes up. She's a make sense person. She'll solve that problem, get through it. And by the way, she's going to come up with better ways of doing things. So listen to her, right? But I know that about her right from the get-go. I do a 3.5 hour to 4 hour leadership workshop. And boy, we get to know each other. We really dig into understanding your sales team. And as a leader, you're not asking questions anymore, right? So how do you hit the fast forward button? You hire Dan to help you get to know your team, so you don't have to take years to get to know them. How do you hit the fast forward button on your speaking? You hire Krista. Why do it the hard way? You can keep doing it the hard way and learn and let it take 4 years like it took Krista the first time around.
Yeah.
Or she's already done it and she's figured out, why not bring her on board? Have her show you some of the tips and secrets that she knows, and then do it faster. That's what I really love about the whole process and the process that you take people through, Krista. It has been so incredibly valuable for me. And I just consider myself so fortunate that James Madison brought us together.
Was he? Okay, I was trying to remember. I feel so fortunate to be connected to you too. And I was trying to remember who was the catalyst that connected us. And so I think you just answered that question for me the other day, because I was going back in my mental archives and couldn't quite remember. But and Dan, I will tell myself too that I'm always, and have been since I started my business, working with at least one coach or mentor at all times. And it's because, one, I know I can get in my own way. I know, and two, I know other people have figured out stuff that I haven't yet figured out. So why don't I learn through them to go faster? And so it's, for me, that's the right way to do it, I guess.
That is absolutely the right way to do it. So, one of the things I want to do, and I want to make sure and talk about your charitable work, because it's such important work. I own 3 dogs. I had 4 dogs at one point. I love my dogs. I know people love cats, and people have different kinds of pets, but tell us about the Unleashed project, or that part of your work.
Well, thank you for asking. And it's funny because I think about, from the very beginning when I started my business, I always said, one of the big impacts that I'm going to make, and I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to help homeless animals. And I said, my goal is that we'll have homeless animal shelters in the United States shutting down because we no longer need them. And 10 plus years ago, and I said, I have no idea how I'm going to do this. but I'm going to do it somehow. And at the time, I asked myself the question that anybody who has a big mission on your heart, you might not know how, is I said, okay, what's a step I can take now? And for me, that was donating to a local group that I knew saved a lot of animals. So I said, okay, I want to walk in alignment, each month, auto withdrawal. And then I started donating time, and really have gotten to the point. If you could see behind me, you'd probably laugh at the flip charts and, the Venn diagrams and all the things of what has led to the crisis. And I'm in the problem solving mode, I would say, of trying to figure out what the right way is to solve this problem where we have too many animals and not enough homes that are able to take them. And so, we're really, our goal with the Unleash Project is to bring strategic and business thinking into the space that doesn't currently have it, which is animal welfare. I mean, I've been in it and I've been called all kinds of names. I've seen all kinds of crazy stuff. And it's a beautiful space where people are so passionate, but there's just that missing link. So that's where my question is. I've worked with the commissioner here locally and, the Humane Society to do some marketing projects for them, but still looking for the best way to be able to get in there and help them create a better way to save more animals and bring in that strategic thinking. So,
I love that. As an animal lover, I'm so glad you're involved. And you know what? Even here in this space where you're very passionate, you're still trying to solve the problem where you can make the biggest impact, right? Because you can easily write a check and you can easily go put in 10 hours a week, but that's not going to make the biggest impact. You scraping up poop at the shelter is not going to be the best use of Krista's time, because you have talents far beyond that. And you probably can make a much bigger impact if you get involved at a higher level on the marketing, on the sales side, on just training people. I'm doing my first nonprofit board here in the month of October. I got hired by a nonprofit to do a team workshop, and that's something new to me. But you're right. They do not have the same business acumen that you and I have from spending 25, 30 years in corporate and then leading small businesses or working in small businesses and helping them thrive. Totally different mindset in that space.
Yes. And Dan, I wish I had it handy. I don't actually have it. I cleaned my desk. This is why I shouldn't clean, because then you can't find things. I just don't have it right here where I could grab it. You would not be surprised that I have a social change model that I've developed about how to create change and what the 6 steps of being able to influence the market and also the people that are making decisions to be able to create this bigger change. Because to your point, I think it's very important to scrape up poop at the shelter, but that's not where I can make my biggest impact. And so I'll have to grab that sometime soon and share that with you. But really looking at how we can do, again, just what I said earlier, that 1 + 1 is 10 kind of impact.
Yes. Well, that 1 +, And that's the other part. I like the fact that you talk about one of my favorite books that I've read this year is 10X is Easier Than 2X.
Yes.
Ben Hardy and I forget who the other author was, but Ben Hardy is who I remember. Dan Sullivan. Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan wrote great book. I've had so many conversations with people who've also read that book. And it truly is remarkable. When you start challenging yourself to 10X, you're going to do things that are much, much more impactful than if you're trying to 2X. Because if you're trying to 2X, you're trying to just double the work you're doing.
Yes.
Right. And doubling the amount, eventually you run out of time. Versus when you're 10X, you're leveraging. I just hired a third person onto my team to help us maximize the way we interact on social media. Because guess what, guys? Everybody's got AI. Everybody's using some form of it. I believe in personalizing it. So I don't like doing just a general email. And this is one of the other reasons I really like working with Krista, because when I did buy after the first time we met, she didn't just lose me, guys. Follow-up is so key, and she is a master at it. You can learn just from getting on her email list of the value that she provides. And those amazing tips and frameworks that she shares. Because that's the other, and I will say this, the other thing I think that helps us as speakers and that will help you is you have to do what you say, what you're teaching. And that's what I love about, as Krista's taking you through a presentation, she's actually following the steps that she's going to teach you
Yeah.
to do so that you can get people to take action at the end of your talk. So that was incredibly evident to me the first time I saw you, Krista. So you don't not only talk the talk, you walk the walk. And that's been a whole lot of fun. I'm going to brag a little. It's kind of like, you're here with your favorite teacher, right?
No.
So I had 2 talks in the past 2 weeks. One of them was called How to 10X Your Certification Investment in Less Than 6 Months, Lessons from My Journey. So I know you're seeing all the elements of how you taught us how to create a talk that grabs people's attention. So that was the first one. But then the next week I had to convert it into a talk for a faith and leadership conference. And that one we named Leading Different, How to Build a Resilient Coaching Business Guided by Faith in the 4 Cardinal Virtues. So I put a number in there, what is it that you're going to get out of it? Again, all I did was follow the framework that you were so generous to provide, Krista. And it has, there's 7 steps that I have, 7 elements of every presentation that I learned from you. And I put it in every presentation that I do, whether it's a 20-minute talk, a 10-minute talk, a 3-hour talk. We're going to make sure that it gets people to take action at the end, because to educate without activate is just a waste of time. Can you tell us about the difference between educating and activating? I'd love for my audience to hear that from you.
Yes, absolutely. And it's something that I think we do. And I'm saying we, as I was absolutely guilty of this, especially when I first started, we do from a place of wanting to serve really deeply. And most of us we've been in school, we've been taught, so we've experienced the education piece, but we haven't experienced the activation piece. And so the education is when you're basically saying, here are the 4 steps, here's your teaching. It's kind of that didactic energy. And the activation is where you're actually inspiring your audience to take action. Most coaches that I know that speak educate, I'll say this lovingly, educate their audience to death. But the magic happens when you educate your audience and you activate them. So we aren't educating them to death. We are giving them great value and great nuggets. And we're also helping them feel tension, which I know some people may be getting uncomfortable in their seats with that, but it's tension that helps them feel motivated to take action, which may be, I'm going to sign up for Dan's free thing. I'm going to sign up for a conversation with Dan. But it helps them realize and connect with the emotional side of it. But to realize, if I don't do something different, I'm going to be in the same place in 6 months or a year. And Dan's ideal client, my ideal client, is not okay with being in that same place in 6 months. So it's really our responsibility as a marketer and as a person running our business, if we're speaking and the goal is to get clients, that we want to educate and activate.
Absolutely. That is such I've learned so much from you, Krista. And guys, I hope you've learned something from Krista. She is such a great coach, such a great speaker. I'm just so glad to have you in my circle, Krista. And I know, like I said, those of you that are listening that are friends of Why Not Leadership or friends of mine, you've heard me talk about her. So it's so great to have you on the podcast and share your talents with Why Not Leadership's audience. Krista, what do you say we end the show on that note?
Why not?
Thank you so much, Krista. You're right on cue. Look forward to airing the episode and having people visit Krista at www.makeyourmark.com/gift. There's a client converting talk, 3 secrets to turn your live and webinar attendees into high-paying clients. And that will put you into Krista's circle. And I promise she doesn't spam you. She doesn't send you a bunch of useless stuff. She sends you stuff that gives you value. And when you're ready, she's ready to help. So thank you, Krista, once again for being on the Lead Different podcast. And I look forward to continuing to stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dan.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.